Quiet quitting your job and escaping the 9 to 5 matrix has become one of the biggest goals for Gen Z, and I understand why. I was in the same situation about a year ago and actually ended up trying to do this, but unfortunately it took a wrong turn for me. Today I'm going to talk about quiet quitting my 9 to 5 and how it backfired. Alright, so in order to tell this story, we got to rewind a bit and start from the very beginning. So going back roughly 3 years ago, I worked for this company that essentially resold clothing. For confidential reasons, we're just going to call this company number one. Now, how I got this job in the first place was actually through one of my previous friends. He was the owner of the store, and we're going to call him Kenny. So before this job, I was actually working a sales job, and one day, Kenny eventually came over and basically told me that he needed someone else to run the store with him. Being experienced in the reselling field, I decided to say yes because I thought it was a better opportunity than where I was at the time. At first, everything was going pretty good and everything seemed to be super chill. I liked the environment I was in, I liked what I was doing, and I was honestly happy to be there at first. This is a bit of a side note, but I'm just going to say working with your friends isn't always the best option. It could definitely be difficult sometimes and even have an impact on your friendship. And to be honest with you, that's exactly what happened to me. As time went on, I was working really hard, I was working extra hours, I was pretty much doing anything in my power to grow the store. I guess I didn't mention this before, but what we were reselling was streetwear and vintage clothing. As time went on and I kept doing all these extra things, it kind of became an expectation for Kenny. And this is when I realized I shouldn't have set the bar so high. I was doing more work than I should have been doing, and it just kept snowballing. For the first year, I was pretty much working every other weekend. Sure, I was getting paid for the extra hours most of the time, but slowly but surely I was definitely starting to burn out. I was sick of Kenny expecting me to say yes to everything, and I slowly started not really wanting to be there anymore. I didn't really have any time for myself anymore, and I was basically just trying to grow his business day in and day out. Although as time went on from being there, I did make a few friends. These friends actually had their own store just in a different location. I'm going to call this company number 2. I remember liking everyone from company 2 right away. I felt like every time I was with them, we always had a good vibe going and everyone was super chill. It actually got to a point where we would joke about me leaving company 1 and going over to company 2. This honestly turns out to be quite ironic later on in the story. About a year and a half passed by and we decided that we needed another person to work at the store with us. Kenny knew this guy who we're going to call Isaac, and Isaac came on board starting to work part-time for us. At this time, I know I was ready to leave, and where I was living, I only had a few months left to be there. So my plan at this point was pretty much just to leave and go move back in with my mom. The only problem was that my mom lived almost 2 hours away, so I couldn't work there anymore. Isaac and me got along quite well, and we honestly started to become really good friends. Eventually, I told Isaac that I pretty much had to leave at some point, and he didn't really like this idea. He really wanted me to stay. And after becoming friends with him, to be honest, I really wanted to stay as well. Isaac lived about an hour away from the store, and like I said, he was only working part-time. We figured out that we really wanted to make this work and stay at the store, so we came up with a plan ourselves. Our plan was in order for us to stay at the store, we basically had to move in together and we both had to work full-time so that we can pay for that spot that we lived at. We also suggested that in order to make this actually happen, it has to be worth it for us. So we were hoping that in the future that at some point we could kind of grow with the company, whether this means opening up one of our own stores or something else. After coming up with this game plan, we sat down with Kenny and we told him all about it. We told him that we're planning to move in together so that we can work for him. The only problem is that we would need to get paid a little bit more in order to actually pay for our place and our other living expenses, of course. On top of that, we also told him that we want to grow within the company. Our time being here is our investment and we want to make something out of it. After Isaac and I had this conversation with Kenny, we all agreed to it. About a month later, Isaac and I moved in together and we were both working full time, and honestly everything seemed to be going great. Now, another side note that I'm going to tell you is that I personally have been in the reselling business for a long time. Ever since high school, I started thrifting and I was actually reselling clothes myself. And ever since I started working for Company 1, I actually never stopped doing my own thing on the side. What I was doing on the side wasn't really related to Company 1 at all. Like always, I had my little side operation going on. Okay, back to Isaac and I living together. We basically were brothers at this point and did everything together. We went to the gym together in the morning, and then we would go to work taking the same car, we would get back, and we would eat dinner. So you can see how this would bring us really close together. Eventually, I showed Isaac what I was doing on the side, and to actually better Company 1, I was teaching him a lot about product knowledge. I also wanted him to start doing something similar to what I was doing so that he can make some extra cash. The spot that we were living at was expensive, and honestly, we didn't have much money left at the end of the month. So I taught Isaac a lot of things, and eventually it turned into both of us kind of going out together and collecting product that we can for ourselves. Keep in mind that this is completely on our own time, and this wouldn't be affecting Company number 1 at all. If anything, it was actually more helpful to Company 1 because Isaac started wholesaling products to the company. It seemed like a good system. Isaac would make a little bit of cash, and the company would too. Eventually, it got to a point where company number one started to get very greedy. Kenny wasn't paying Isaac as much as he should have been, and honestly, Isaac got pretty fed up with this. I obviously knew about this, and I told Isaac that there's other ways to make money by doing this. I brought Isaac into what I was doing on my side operation. Quickly, we discovered that we worked really well together, and honestly, we were making a lot of progress. And we slowly noticed the cash starting to come in more and more. While this was all happening, at company number one, things started to get a bit toxic. I think it's safe to say that no one's goals really aligned with each other's, other than Isaac's and mine. After a while of this going on, Isaac and I decided that this is a pretty bad environment for us and we don't really want to be there anymore. It was a bit of a tough situation because we literally moved into the same place together to work full-time for this place. Now, I understand it was a bit of a risk for everyone, but regardless, we were stuck in that situation. Our side operations started growing more and more, and we kind of thought to ourselves, what if we can do this ourselves and do this full-time? We didn't want to be at company one anymore. We weren't really getting treated right. It was a toxic environment. This side operation seems to be working for us, so why wouldn't we just stick with that? And better yet, why wouldn't we try to grow it and hit our goals? This means that we don't have to work for anyone and we get to make our own decisions. So Isaac and I decided that this is the path that we're going to go down. Now, we were obviously smart about it. We weren't making enough money to just completely get up and leave. We still had about 5 months of rent left to pay for. And we definitely weren't making enough money to cover our rent, our living expenses, and also profit from the business that we were doing. So we came up with a game plan. We knew that we wanted to quit, just not then and there. We set a goal to save up $30,000 through our side business, and then once we hit that, then we can quit company one. By then, our rent will pretty much be paid for, we'll be able to pay ourselves, and we'll be able to keep putting money into the company. At this point, we knew we were quiet quitting our jobs. As time went on, we slowly started dragging our feet a tiny bit at company one. Obviously, we were still doing everything that we were supposed to be doing, we just didn't put in the extra work like we used to. And this really frustrated Kenny. Slowly but surely, resentment started to build up and the environment started to get more and more toxic. It even got to a point where Isaac and I didn't even want to go to work anymore. But knowing our plan was working in the background, we kept showing up every day. At this point, we basically had about 2 months left of rent to pay for. But something else was also happening while all this was going down. Company 2, Isaac, and me all started to become really good friends. We started hanging out with them more on the weekends. We'd go and watch football together. Everyone enjoyed each other's company and it was a good time. We're going to call the owner of company number 2 Leon. I realized that Leon and I had very good chemistry, not only through our friendship, but also business as well. I kind of told him everything that's going on at company 1, and I think that sparked some ideas for him. Because not long after, we actually started talking about Isaac and I going over to company number 2. Now, the reason that we were going to go over there is because that this was already an established company, and Leon also told us that we could get ownership. Obviously, this was a huge decision for Isaac and I to make. Shortly after, Isaac and I agreed to going over to company number 2. The only problem was that we were still working at company number 1. Now sure, you could call us traitors, but if you were in the same situation as we were, I think you would do the same thing. Who wants to work in a toxic environment that you can't grow in? And to be fair, we were already in the process of quiet quitting company number 1. At that moment, we decided that company 2 would be better for us, but we also knew that we had to sacrifice our own thing that was going on. Now the question was, how are we supposed to go from company 1 over to company number 2, given the whole circumstance and the situation that we're in? Not only that, but we had everything else to think about, like if we go to company number 2, where are we going to live? Luckily for me, company number 2 was actually closer to my mom, so I could move in with her. And it turns out that Isaac was able to move in with someone from company number 2. So those worries were out of the way. All we had to do was leave company 1 now. The new game plan for me and Isaac was to work the rest of the 2 months so that we could pay for our rent where we lived at the moment, and then we could move over to company number 2. But shit started to hit the fan real fast. At this point, Kenny could definitely sense that something was going on. I think in the moment he knew we were quiet quitting, but I'm pretty sure he thought that we were going to go off and do our own thing, which yes, was the original plan. I don't think that he had any idea that we were going to go over to company number 2. He started to become more and more of a dick towards us, and I could tell that he was very flustered. He honestly had no idea what to do and was in a panic. You gotta remember that Isaac and I were his only workers, so as soon as we left, it's gonna be a lot more difficult to run the store. We obviously understood this, but we also decided that we didn't want to put up with his shit anymore. So we told him that we needed to have a talk, we sat down with him, and we told him that we're quitting in 1 week. He was honestly upset that we only gave him 1 week, but honestly, I don't think anyone could have lasted over a week. I think something a lot worse could have happened. So, a week passes by, and we left company 1 to go over to company number 2. Now, you're probably thinking in your head that, oh, well, that doesn't really seem that bad. Like, you guys eventually left, and you guys are probably going to be a lot more happier over at this other spot. Well, to be honest with you, I thought the same thing. Isaac and I started working at company number 2, and we sacrificed our whole side operation. We figured that if we're going to have ownership over here, then what's the point of having our own side thing when we can just put all of our main focus into this one thing? Unfortunately, that turned out to be one of our biggest mistakes, and I'll tell you why. Now, Isaac and I knew that going over to company 2 wasn't going to pay us as much at first. But what we did get told was that all of our expenses will be paid and everyone's going to be stress-free. And eventually from us being there, the company's going to grow even more and everyone's going to start to make more money that way. 2 months go by and Isaac and I did not see a dime. None of our expenses were getting paid for. This was even worse for Isaac because, like I said, he was living with someone from company number 2 and he didn't even have money to pay him. Now, the company was growing a little bit more now that we were there, but unfortunately it just wasn't growing fast enough and we didn't have enough time or money in order to stay there. Isaac and I quickly realized that we were actually making more money from our side operation than what we were making here. I mean, it's quite obvious when you're not making any money there, right? So we decided that we're going to have to leave and go back to our original idea. The original idea of us pursuing our side business and hopefully making it into a full one. But the only problem now is that's been shut down for at least 2 months. We're not getting any sales over there because we're not doing anything, and we also have next to no product. Regardless, we had no choice. We weren't making any money, so we decided to shoot our shot and go back to the side business. Isaac moved out and moved back in with his parents, and I was at my mom's place. Another problem now is that Isaac and I live about 2 hours away from each other. So how are we supposed to get this business going again when we're so far from each other? We have no money, we have no product. Like, what are we going to do? Either way, we took the leap of faith and went for it. We gathered up the little bit of money we had left and put it into the business. Ironically, this is when Trump announced the tariffs and everything was just going downhill. It was incredibly hard, but Isaac and I managed to get things going back up again. Unfortunately, this time we had to start back at 0 and it was the worst time to do it. We ended up getting a storage unit that would be placed right in between his house and my house. So the commute for both of us was about an hour away. Slowly but surely, we started to get things off of the ground. Months passed by, and although we were working very hard every single day, we never really got back from where we left off from the original side business we had. At this point, I had about $1,000 to my name, and I decided it's probably time I get another 9 to 5. What a full circle moment. Isaac also decided to get a job as well. To be honest with you, after everything that fully happened, I truly believe that I'm in a way better situation than I was before. I'm back working a 9 to 5, but I love the environment I'm in and I love the work that I'm doing. Not only that, I have great people around me who are supporting me every single day. What's even better is that Isaac and I are still working on our side business. As of now, we decided to treat our business solely as a side business. Now, will we ever go back to the original plan? I guess time will tell. Probably not though, to be honest with you. At this point, I think I'm sick of that industry and would love to do something else, if I was fully pursuing it. I know that was a long story, but after all that, I want to leave you with this. If you're going to quiet quit your job, first of all, come up with a very solid, bulletproof plan. And honestly, it wouldn't hurt to come up with a plan B. My second piece of advice is don't make it obvious. I understand that you're probably in a situation that you hate to be in right now. Trust me, I was too, as you know. But stick it out because I promise it's going to make things a lot easier for you. If I could go back, I would definitely do those things. As well, I would probably make an emergency fund. Depending about the situation that you're in, I would definitely consider saving yourself a couple grand. Needless to say, if you are going to quiet quit your job, I wish you the best of luck. I hope that you learned a thing or two from my story. Try not to make the same mistakes that I did. And I truly believe that things will go a lot better for you than they did for me. So good luck out there. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.